Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your Erik ten Hag press conference reaction for Manchester United's game against West Ham on Sunday. We move from Fenerbahce into another massive game. But is it more excuses from Erik ten Hag? He speaks about Ugarte and the integration of him. He speaks about mistakes at the back and how it's unacceptable. We've also got an update from Fabrizio Romano on Zirkzee. Darren Fletcher has been charged. But I want to start off with what he said about injuries, because I think that this, to me, is, without question, one of the big issues that Manchester United have. But I've got to be consistent here and say that I personally think you have to acknowledge it, but I don't think we can use it as an excuse. And I don't know who you'd blame for this. I mean, look, I certainly don't think it's exclusively down to Erik ten Hag. But being asked about injuries in the press conference, he said, yes, that holds us back in our levels and also in our position in the league. Because when you don't have the players available, you can't line up your best team. And that's what is holding us back at the moment. We need more players available more often. And, you know, it's massively frustrating, but I won't let it be an excuse. Like I say, we've had the chat about, I know what's happening in the fan base. Do we need to keep repeating? Lots of people want Ten Hag out. Lots of people want him to turn it around. But I think we can all agree that using injuries as an excuse is not an excuse. I don't know where you put the blame. I think there's a few areas. Certainly, Ten Hag has to take some. Ineos have to take some. Certainly, the physio department have to take a lot of the blame as well, and the individual players maybe. But we can't use excuses as an excuse, because if we use it as an excuse, then what was last year then? Like, we know we had a massive amount of injuries last season. We can't go into a new season and say, oh, we've got a load of injuries, like we're surprised. Like, if you take the door off your front door and you come home and there's no door there, you can't go, well, that's a surprise. You took the door off. And we chose not to buy a left back. And you look at some of the injuries that we have at the moment, Harry Maguire, Mason Mount, Luke Shaw, those injuries were injuries last year. They're not a surprise. Yoro is a new signing, so I take that on board. That would be a surprise. But a lot of the injuries we've got were injuries last year. But of course, I'm not completely going to be unfair on this. We are unable to put a balanced team out since the start of the season because we don't have a left back. But we knew we didn't have a left back a year ago. We ignored the January transfer window and we ignored the summer. So look, I believe this team, I believe these players can resurrect this season, and I believe that we can have a future. I'm not saying that. And I agree that injuries make that job harder. But if I'm being completely honest, it would be so easy just to use it as an excuse and go, when we've got our best players, we'll be a better team. Yeah, we would be a better team if we had a left back. We would be a better team if Mainu was fit. We would be a better team maybe if Yoro was fit. We would be a better team if we had Mason Mount last night and didn't have to play Mazraoui there. But we had these injuries last year, so why is it an excuse? Like, I'm not going to blame necessarily the coach or Ineos, but we can't use it as an excuse. Even though it's probably staring us in the face that it's causing us a problem. Why didn't we buy a left back? Why did we think Mason Mount was going to be reliable this year? I just can't have it as an excuse. That can't be the excuse because we knew about it. You know what I mean? And I hope that probably comes across as a bit, messy, because it clearly is. Saka doesn't play for Arsenal at the weekend because he's injured and they lose. It's a bit of an excuse. Man United not having a left back all season is a bit of an excuse. But Mikel Arteta didn't take a baseball bat to Saka's legs. Man United chose not to have a left back. So yeah, we're not as good as we would be with a left back, but we chose not to have a left back. And that's what I'm saying. Whoever made those decisions can't be moaning about injuries. That's what I'm saying. We can't use it as an excuse, even though some people would say it is. I think we've walked into this with eyes wide open. Also, let's go through some other bits. But look, there was quite an interesting point. We'll come back to that one, actually. Ten Hag speaking about mistakes last night. Quite interesting what he had to say. But let me just go through some of his comments. So Plans for the West Ham game, as I hinted at this morning, Man United are not coming back to Manchester. This is Ten Hag's word. We're staying overnight in Turkey, and then we go to London today, and then training on Saturday in London. We've got to be ready. It's a short turnaround, and we expect, of course, Bruno back, and hopefully also Johnny Evans. So Man United do not travel back to Manchester from Turkey. They stay a night, they go to London, they train in London, and then they play the game. Makes sense. Doesn't normally happen, but makes sense, I suppose. Hopefully Johnny Evans is back, and obviously Bruno will be. He was asked about Manuel Ugarte. He said, for sure, the sixth position is a key position in your team, and he's got to learn this position in our game model. I think today is a step forward. Really pleased with his performance, and from here on, he has to build on that. He said, we've got Casemiro. He's done well lately, also very good. We've also got people that can fill in that role, and we've got Mainu, and I think Christian Eriksen is doing brilliant in this moment. He said, on being patient with Ugarte and other new signings, you've got to integrate them. He came late in the window, and then we had to integrate him during the competition, and that takes time. He said, we have to stay patient, but as you see, if the quality in that position is not right, it's very difficult for a team to control games. And then I don't even speak about dominating games. He said that position needs one who brings the quality all the time, and we have to integrate him now into this team. As I said, I'm pleased with his performance today, and from here on in, he can build up. So this, I hinted at this morning. I'm not convinced that Ugarte will start against West Ham. It sounds to me like Ten Hag's looked at that performance last night and said, yeah, it's good. He's got to build on that, but he doesn't trust him to do the job yet. Again, are you going to use this as an excuse? No. And people are going to go, Goldbridge, what's happened to you since the morning show? You've got two really good excuses to defend Ten Hag and you're not using them. Well, I'm not using the injury excuse for the reasons just said. And I'm not using the integration thing as Ugarte as an excuse either. Because yet again, we won the FA Cup against the best team in England with Amrabat playing in that role. We let Amrabat go. We couldn't sell Casemiro, and we bought Ugarte at the end of the window. We weren't ready for the start of this season in a very key position. I agree it's going to take time for new signings to settle. I agree that Ugarte may not be quite ready yet, but it's not like we didn't know about it. We played an FA Cup final with Amrabat there, and we looked good. We let Amrabat go. We started the season with Casemiro, who hasn't looked good there, and then we bought a replacement right at the end of the window who needs time to settle in. So yet again, I'm like, you can't use injuries as an excuse because you knew we'd get them. And you can't use not having a proper six as an excuse because you did have one at the end of the season, and now you've got a new one that's going to take time to settle in. And the one thing you haven't got is time. And everything seems to be about the future, and you haven't got it. As I said, I can self-reflect. I don't want to see Ten Hag sacked. I believe in this team. But how long is he going to get? You can see there's a lot of people that don't want to give him time, rightly or wrongly. And we're talking about time. And I think with Ugarte, you might not get that time. I mean, Ten Hag could easily be the guy that spends £50 million on Yoro and never plays him because he's sacked before Yoro's back. He ain't got time. I think Ugarte's got to start against West Ham, but I get the hint that he's going. I don't think he's quite ready for it, so I might not start him. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, look, West Ham themselves are a prime example of, I think I watched West Ham play Villa on the opening game of the season, and nearly all their signings were on the bench. And I was like, Lopetegui's not Moyes. Why is he using Moyes signings and putting all his players on the bench? Because obviously he's got the same thing of a need to integrate them in. But your job's in jeopardy, mate. It's a weird, I sort of get why managers do it. You know, these new signings need time to adjust, and they do. But you might not get time to see them adjust. So it'd be interesting. I get the feeling Ugarte will be on the bench and it'll be Casemiro, Eriksen and Bruno against West Ham. But personally, I think I'd rather see Ugarte playing, and, you know, we spent £60 million on him, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. He was asked about the reaction to the Spurs loss, and he basically said, I do not acknowledge that game. I ignore that game against Spurs because we were downsized to 10 men when we were already losing 1-0, and it's not a fair assessment of the team because that red card then got rescinded, and we didn't get the chance to bounce back fairly. So he basically said, you know, I don't acknowledge that game, but he did say, this team is resilient. This team is determined. In Brentford, they put in 2 tough away games before that. Now in Europe, Porto and today, this team has character, and this team shows fight, spirit and determination to win games. I hope he's right on that. I hope he's right on that, because regardless of whatever happens with Ten Hag, there is a team here that will need to be picked up by the new manager if Ten Hag gets the sack. And we need these players to not drop the ball. I think there's a very different conversation between the manager and the players. Obviously, they're intertwined by results, but if you remove Ten Hag and a new manager comes in, you still need this selection of players. So regardless of what happens with Ten Hag, let's hope they keep showing spirit, determination, and they don't start downing tools. Because I look at what happened with Mourinho and what happened with Ole, and there are similarities in the sense that a lot of people were saying with Mourinho and Ole at the end, where's the style of play? Get rid of this manager. But obviously the players down tools and those managers went. And a lot of people look back on those decisions and go, certainly with Mourinho, we shouldn't have let Mourinho go. The players let him down. But at the end with Mourinho, people were going, where's the style of play? He's lost it. Get rid of him. And we've heard that before with Ole, and we've seen it with Ten Hag now. So what I do not want to see this time is players downing tools. I want to see that fight and determination. And we certainly saw that against Villa. We certainly saw it late on against Porto. We saw it with some players last night, and we did see it in the second half against Brentford. So hopefully that will continue regardless of what happens with performances. Why are we the only club that criticises every little thing that the manager does? We're just spiteful and toxic, says Trey. He said about the Spurs game, I tried to explain it was not fair to assess the team because there was a red card of one of our best players and our captain. It was overturned. That was an injustice to assess the team on that performance against Spurs. Okay, I think he was just being asked about the Spurs game there. He said on other injuries, he said, we have to be better to get more available players because we know when we have them, we're a tough team to play. When we have them back, and then when we have them, we can be really successful, and that is what we have shown over the last couple of months. On Anthony, he says, I haven't seen it, but it's only then I have to tell you out of the second hand. So from the doctor and the physio who told me what they saw, I have to see the video before I give a comment on Anthony if he's out. I mean, to be honest with you, if Anthony's out for Sunday, I wouldn't expect him to be involved in any way, shape or form anyway. So if anyone's going to have an injury that's going to be a long-term one, Anthony would be the one I would pick out of Rashford, Ahmad and Garnacho. So not too fussed about that one, to be honest with you. Hopefully it's not a bad injury, but honestly, who had Anthony down as an important player against West Ham at the weekend? Anyway, a couple of other things to bring you as well. A few people I think have overreacted to this, but Erik Ten Hag talking about the goal that we conceded last night. He said, look, we're doing very well to get into a winning position. Tactics are right, but then of course the team should learn game management. We have got young players, but mistakes like today should not happen on our level. A few people have reacted to that by saying that he's throwing his young players under the bus, and if they see that, they'll down tools. I mean, if I'm Garnacho or Rasmus or Ahmad or any other young player in that team, I am not taking any responsibility for what Ten Hag is saying there. The goal happens because Dalot doesn't close down St. Maximin and Lindelof doesn't jump. Some people want to put it on Martinez. Some people think Onana could have saved it. None of them are young players. What he's basically saying is we're doing well to a point and then we're switching off. And that goal is inexcusable. And we know why it's inexcusable. I saw Scholes was blaming Dalot a little bit, saying Dalot gives too much space. I think it's a bit harsh because I think if you get tight on St. Maximin, he's so quick, he'll leave you. So I think Dalot was a bit scared of him being taken on. So he wanted to give himself a couple of yards and then St. Maximin puts the cross in. But honestly, I've seen it so many times. I just don't understand what Lindelof is doing. It's some of the worst defending we've seen in the last few years, and we've seen some horrific defending. But Ten Hag is right, and you're right. We have given up wins too often this season, especially in Europe, because of bad defending. And we seem to have an issue with crosses, which defies logic to me, because we've actually got players like Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, De Ligt, Lindelof and Martinez are no slouches in the air. I know they're not as dominant as De Ligt and Evans and Maguire, but we seem to have a problem with these sort of goals, and we do switch off. And that is about game management. That is about consistency. So I don't have a problem with what Ten Hag says there. And he basically took off Lindelof straight away. So it's not like he's saying Garnacho's caused that problem or anyone else. He's calling out the players that cause that issue. Black Farm says, Delo invited the cross, never closed it down. As I said, I think he was just scared of St. Maximum's pace taking him on. Good to hear. Okay, Delo isn't a good defender, to be honest, as G-Man. But that's not a shock anyway, is it? I mean, I think Delo is a really important player for us, but he ain't the most complete right back in the world. If he was, then we would not probably have him still at the club. There are clubs looking at him. Defensively, it's like last season, I always said, Wan-Bissaka is better defensively than Delo, and Delo is better going forward. What do we want to be? Do we want to be a defensive side, or do we want to be attacking side? You know? Just on Zirkzee as well, a few bits. Actually, just before we go to Zirkzee and Fabrizio Romano, Darren Fletcher has been charged with misconduct by the FA over his actions towards the match officials following Man United's win over Brentford. This was at half-time around the De Ligt blood substitution, or he had to go off and have the injury. Darren Fletcher went down to the tunnel, had to go at the referee, so he's been charged by the FA. But Fabrizio Romano, with a big update on Joshua Zirkzee, reports that Zirkzee is thinking of leaving Manchester United are false. Manchester United are more than happy to wait for Zirkzee to develop the same way they have done with Rasmus, which I think is great news. Regardless, again, of what's happening with the manager, can we please just get behind some of our players? I mean, writing off players that have only been here a few weeks is incredible. And I'm jealous of, well, I'm not jealous because I'm not doing it. And I don't think there are a lot of United fans that aren't doing it as well. But there are some, and unfortunately, the vocal minority can be very vocal. And the last thing I want is for Joshua Zirkzee to be seeing it, because clearly he looks a bit like a rabbit in the headlights at the moment. Clearly he's struggling to adjust. But we need to be supportive, and we need to be giving him that platform. Maybe he will flop in the future, but I think it's way too early to be writing him off now. And all these stories about him being unsettled and wanting to go, it's good to draw a line under it, because I look at Liverpool, as I've said in the past, and Darwin Núñez for £80 million has hardly set the world on fire. But Liverpool fans have stayed with him, despite the misses, despite the bad performances. And look, I'm not saying that Zirkzee is as good as Darwin Núñez. I'd take Darwin Núñez tomorrow at Man United. I liked him at Benfica, but you know, there are stories circulating around Zirkzee, and I think we can do better as a fan base to support our players, because I genuinely do believe that this team can be better. Whether it's under Ten Hag or somebody else, I genuinely believe that we have got the fundamentals for a team to be better than what we have been. And I think we've got to add to it. And I think there's other areas that we can improve on. We don't have a left back at the moment. The midfield is quite, short at the moment. We have got players to come back, hopefully, as well. But I think we can be better. And I think that there are a lot of players in that team, such as De Ligt, such as Mazraoui, such as Yoro, such as Ugarte, such as Zirkzee, such as some of the young players that can get better. And that is my hope. But it's a huge game against West Ham at the weekend, and I'm not going to deny that. Just getting some of your comments then. These players just aren't Man United level. It doesn't matter who the manager is, says Joseph. Not Ten Hag out, just want United to improve. We need to start building momentum, which will bring confidence, as Red Devils advocate. What I don't want to see against West Ham is that we go into that game feeling sorry for ourselves. I think that if you look post the international break, before the international break, Porto, Villa, Brentford and Fenerbahce, the positive is that we've not been beaten in 4 games. The negative is we've only won 1. But we're looking at West Ham away and then 4 home games in a row. There is an opportunity for these players to silence some of the critics. There is an opportunity to win at West Ham and then look at 4 home games in a row with the security of Old Trafford to really build a bit of momentum. West Ham becomes the biggest game of the season, but the players need to approach that in the right state of mind. West Ham themselves are not in the right state of mind at the moment. That first 10 minutes, that first goal really could decide whose heads go up and whose heads go down. So you need to get behind these players and hope that they can go out there and deliver. And the thing I would say to any United player as well, and we speak about Rashford a lot, but look, let's speak about Ahmad for a moment. If Ahmad's feeling a bit pissed off because he's not playing, he had to be very patient last season to get his chance, and he did very well at the end of last season. I thought he was very unlucky not to play in the FA Cup final, but obviously, to be fair, Garnacho and Rashford played quite well in that final. So if you are Ahmad or you are Ugarte or you are a player that feels that you should be part of the first team, the team's not tearing up trees at the moment. Like, we're not winning games 2 or 3-0. You're not like sat on the bench and you're there for a while. Your opportunity will come. Be focused on that opportunity, because what we don't want to see is moodiness. We don't want to see players downing tools or getting the hump or, being disillusioned. Whatever happens with this manager or the next, Player FC must be killed off. We need players that, even if you've got a complete and utter clown in charge, they're looking at the badge and they're focused on that, because it will stand them in good stead. It is never acceptable for a Manchester United player, regardless of who the coach is, to be thinking, I'm not going to try as hard because I don't like this manager, they're treating me badly. Your professional pride and the club that you're playing for should always kick in. And I'm not saying that Ahmad's doing that, like I said this morning, God no. But what I'm saying is, you might be disappointed that you're not in the team. You might be disappointed that you don't get a job. We've all been in those positions. But prove people wrong. Don't down tools, prove people wrong. And I think that that's what we need to see on Sunday, because it's going to be a massive game and there's going to be a lot of people expecting a bad result. I don't. I think that these players are capable of getting us a good result if they go into it with the right mentality and the right focus. And I hope that they can do that. Players should be proving the manager wrong by coming on and scoring, says Sufyan. Ahmad offers more than Anthony, says Mac. It's really great that the comment after Sufyan is that from Macabel, because I was just about to say that. Ahmad came on and instantly, had that left back on toast, and he should have come on for Anthony. The Anthony substitution was a mistake, and it was a mistake also because he got injured. I like Ahmad. But what I want to see from Ahmad is focus, and he did that last season, and I believe he can do it again. But if Ahmad doesn't start on Sunday, he's got to be ready to start. Like, he's got to be ready to and focused to go. Definitely. What are your thoughts then, everybody? We've just gone through some of Ten Hag's comments there, basically saying that injuries are a problem again and it's holding us back a bit. Also talking about Ugarte and how it's an important position, but he's got to be given time to settle in. Is that a hint that it's going to be Eriksen, Casemiro and Bruno? I think it will be at the weekend. I'm absolutely convinced Ugarte will be on the bench again, so I really wouldn't start getting to sort of 1 o'clock on Sunday and seeing Ugarte out the team and getting yourself stressed. I really do think he will bench Ugarte again, unfortunately. But I don't see the injuries as excuses. That if it was the first time it had happened, I would, but we can't be blind to the fact that this is causing us a problem. The difference between Nunez and Zirkzee is Liverpool are winning and United are not. Zirkzee doesn't have the luxury to miss open chances because United fans are sick of bad results, says the NZ Outsiders. But that's not Zirkzee's fault. That's our fault. That, we can't, you can't say it's okay to not give Zirkzee patience because the team isn't performing. We'll only give him patience if the team is performing. Like, if anything, they need more patience in an underperforming team because it's not their fault. What I don't understand about writing players off when they've only been here a few weeks is you are literally cutting your own foot off. If you are a Man United fan and you're saying Zirkzee is shit and a waste of time and he's crap, well, there's no alternative. There isn't £100 million in the bank to go and buy somebody in January. Like, we've got what we've got. So slagging him off and calling him shit just makes the problem worse. You're better off going, okay, I think he might not be good enough, but I'm just going to try and get behind him in the hope that that might help, because we're not in a position where we can go, let's get rid of him. I mean, we don't get rid of players. What was the last player that we bought and went, we've made a mistake, let's get rid of them? He's going to be here for a while. So it's in our interest to try and get something out of him. I'll be honest on Zirkzee, I don't really understand what he's going to do. But in the sense that if he's a false nine, what are we doing again? Are we imploring our wingers to just shoot? Are they going to be attackers from the wide? Because we're a very different team with Rasmus than we are with Zirkzee. Rasmus plays on the last man. He's very physical. He's very mobile. Zirkzee wants to drop in deep, which changes the way we play. I like it if we're successful, mixing it up. But I saw it when Zirkzee came on for Rasmus against Brentford. the way we played changed instantly. And when Rasmus came on last night for Zirkzee, with the way we played changed instantly. They're very, very different players, which is good as a plan B. But I also think if you've got Erling Haaland up front at Man City and you take him off, I want somebody that can do what Haaland does. I don't want to literally change the way we play. So I'm intrigued to see how he's going to develop because he offers something very, very different. Good point, though, from the NZ Outsiders. We need to sign Osman in the winter, says Forho. Yeah, well, we're not going to do that, are we? I think realistically, that's my point. You can't write players off expecting to get new players in because we haven't got the funds to do it. We won't actually pay Zirkzee's fee off for 2 years, so we're not going to sell him before we even get him. Hugo says, you all say Ugarte is slow. It's like Casemiro. They are defensive midfielders. They are strong, not fast. What are you expecting? Do you think Rodri is fast? Not every player needs to be fast, says Hugo. I've completely missed that one. Thank you very much, Hugo, for bringing it in. No, I think you're completely wrong about Ugarte. I think it's one of the things we spoke about in the summer. I think actually it's an attribute that doesn't get mentioned with a holding midfielder, like Hugo says, for obvious reasons. Rodri's not fast. Declan Rice isn't particularly fast. Casemiro wasn't particularly fast. The number 6 isn't really known for being quick. But Ugarte, I think, is fast. I think he genuinely is quick. I think that's why he recovers the ball so quickly, because he is quick at getting there. So, again, I think people saying that Ugarte's slow reminds me of people saying De Ligt's slow. He's not. I don't think Ugarte's slow at all. I think it's actually an attribute that's quite rare in the midfield and isn't even required in the midfield. But I do think he is. I don't think he's slow. I genuinely think he's actually quite quick for a number 6. There shouldn't be any more new signings until we see an improvement within the team under the current manager, says Alpha Gaming. We shouldn't have signed Zirkzee, says Liam UFC. We need a proven striker. Should have gave Villa what they wanted for Watkins. But Lee, that sort of thing belongs on TalkSport because it's just completely and utterly fantasy. You can't say we shouldn't have bought Zirkzee and we should have given Villa £100 million for Watkins, because if we had the money to do that, we would have tried. We don't have the £100 million. We bought Zirkzee because he fitted into the parameters of what we were willing to spend on a striker, and that's why we do it. We didn't have that open checkbook to go and buy the best striker out there. We didn't have that opportunity, and we didn't have the funds to do that. So, mate, we didn't even buy a left back because we didn't have any money left. That's speculative. But we bought. What did we buy? We bought Yoro because we needed a centre back. We bought De Ligt because we needed another centre back. We bought Mazraoui because we wanted to replace Wan-Bissaka. We bought Ugarte because we needed another 6. And then we bought Zirkzee in. We didn't have it. Why didn't we buy a left back? And you're talking about we could have bought Ollie Watkins. I'd love to buy Ollie Watkins instead of Zirkzee. 100%. Premier League proven. He's a better striker and he plays on the last man. But we didn't have the funds to do that. You have got to be realistic. And regardless of where we're going as a football club, we're not going to suddenly pull £400 million out and start buying Musiala and Ollie Watkins and people like that. There is an element of truth about one way or another. We've got to get the best out of what we've got. Career mode is happening at 3 o'clock. Yes, hopefully can bring some smiles on the face of Man United fans and start winning some games. Christian says, Ahmad didn't look happy coming on. Coaches were trying to cheer him up. Yeah, well, that's professionalism, mate. I mean, I completely agree that I'd be pissed off if I was him. But don't be unhappy. Be angry. Prove people wrong. That's what you need to do, isn't it? I've been Ten Hag in, but I've lost faith since the Spurs games. Get Amorim or Nagelsmann, says R. Won't happen till the summer, though, will it? Why doesn't he change a tactical formation, says Agari. I think if you change your tactics, you sack yourself. We saw that with Ollie. If you go to a back 5 at the end, you're gone. You've got to stick to your principles as a manager. I'll take a point away from home. Mark says enjoy writing. And we'll take... Cameron Roy says it will take Zirkzee at least a season to settle at United. You've got to judge him next season. And I think this is a great point. And, again, I'll read the room on this. It's going to take Zirkzee, Ugarte, De Ligt, Mazraoui, and eventually Yoro months to settle, because that's what tends to happen. but they're in a team where there is no patience. So it's a double-edged sword. These players categorically, factually need time and patience, but they're playing in a team where there isn't one. Sorry, there isn't any. And that's the problem we face, because the fan base is so locked into a drama of, well, you know, we're not getting the results. What's going on with the manager? And then you've got these new signings who are part of that drama, and people won't give them any patience because of it. But actually, they do need time. Logically, they do need time. They may need more time. I mean, actually, if Zirkzee was playing in a good Man United side, it would take him less time to adjust. Being in an unsettled team, it's going to take him longer. So he actually needs more patience than we would normally expect in a team that's performing well, which is why I always use the class of 92. Class of 92 come into a team that's winning titles all the time with the likes of Roy Keane and Paul Ince and Eric Cantona and Mark Hughes and all these players, and Peter Schmeichel and Dennis Irwin and Steve Bruce and all these leaders and all this success, that you can just nurture them lovely. It stands to reason that it's going to be harder if you're doing it in a team that's struggling. Realistically, Mark, over the course of Ten Hag's tenure of Man United, have you seen improvement, says Cumzo? Well, look, I mean, I'm not going to go back into... It was a very long show this morning and a very good show, and we covered everything in that. But one thing I didn't say, which I suppose I can add here that's different to that, is that people talk about standards a lot, and what they actually mean is style of play. And we haven't had a style of play since Sir Alex Ferguson left. We haven't had a consistent 5 games where we've had a style of play since Sir Alex Ferguson left. And that's a problem. And that's a standard problem, of course it is. But when you're talking about winning 2 trophies in 2 seasons, I would say the standards are higher than they have been in the last 10 years, factually, because we haven't done that. We haven't done that for 10 years, won back-to-back trophies. So somehow, even though things aren't going great, we've still managed to win 2 trophies in 2 years. But Robert McCormack said it at the end of last year. It's not necessarily about winning another Carabao Cup or an FA Cup. It's not necessarily about finishing top 4. The style of play is really important this year. Right, correctly. The way we play football, I'm not saying it's not. Like, I completely agree. This year really is about playing better football. That has to happen this year. And at the moment, there's been signs of it. But every time we get a sign, we get a fuck up at the back. I mean, we're 2-0 up against Porto. That could have been a really good result. 2-0 up, and then we end up 3-2 down because defensively, we switch off. I don't know whether we were going to win last night, but we're 1-0 up, and Lindelof switches off. So there has been signs of potential, but we keep letting ourselves down. And it's getting to that point now, and West Ham represents that, doesn't it? Spec says Rashford and Garnacho were pissed off with Zirkzee. Well, there was that one point, wasn't there, when Garnacho was there to be played in one-on-one and Zirkzee just didn't fancy the pass. And that to me is why we've got to be patient, because the competition, the confidence is just not there. Question hello says, for the first time since 1980 to 1983, Man United have failed to win in their last 6 European games. Yeah, okay. I mean, I was already aware of we haven't won for 12 months, but I mean, if we're going to start talking about 83 and 84, should we start talking about Sir Alex Ferguson's 3rd season when he finished mid-table? I mean, stats and history, you can take notice of them. You'll always find another one that's a reason not to look at it. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. That predates Sir Alex, and Sir Alex had a terrible first 3 years. Are we going to really look at the 80s for stuff? I mean, I choose to look at West Ham. I choose to live in the present, and it's not good enough at the moment, but there's a game on Sunday, and I think if you win that game, everything looks a lot better. If you lose that game, everything looks really bad. If you draw that game, probably where we are at the moment. So there'll be 3 outcomes on Sunday. If Zirkzee says he's a 9.5 and not a 9, and scoring lots of goals is not his thing, doesn't that leave us with Højlund alone? We need an experienced number 9, says Ali Jabbar. I think you make it... I mean, I need to go and set up this career mode, but I think you make a great point. and I probably didn't put it across as well as that. Rasmus is different to Zirkzee. If Rasmus gets injured, we won't play the same way. So we do need, I agree, at some point we need an out-and-out striker, because Rasmus is the only one that we've got. We're still light in a lot of positions, I suppose. That's what I'm trying to say. We need to buy goals, like Van Persie says, enjoy writing. And we need more legs in the midfield, says Cherry Evans. Absolutely madness. Every other team has legs in there. Yeah, well, I agree. I said this after the game at Brentford last week, against Brentford, that despite Casemiro and Eriksen doing okay, they don't have the legs in the midfield. Anyway. I am on my career mode at 3 o'clock. Make sure you tune in for that. 8 o'clock show tonight. Looking forward to that. I think we could all do with a bit of a chill and a drink. So join me live at 8 o'clock, of course. Sir Alex had a Champions League win with Aberdeen, says class of 92. Don't know what that's got to do with anything. We're now living in the 80s, are we? Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Absolute legends. If you want a bit of escapism, join me for my career mode at 3 o'clock. And I'm back on here at 8 o'clock, of course. And if you haven't seen our Premier League preview, that's on That's Football Now from the Goldbridge Arms. Good section on Man United and West Ham in there as well. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Thanks for watching.